The people in this part of Ohio have watched as the political establishment killed their towns, shipped their jobs overseas, murdered their kids with opioids, destroyed their families, and entirely abandoned them. These people do not want peace with the political system. They want war. They elected Donald Trump, and they love Donald Trump because he came to bring war.
What you are about to watch is the speech I gave for the Turning Point chapter at the University of Mount Union in northeastern Ohio last week. Now, being northeastern Ohio, the heartland of Trump country, this is a very epic speech on the rise of the middle American radical and hence the rise of America First, Make America Great Again, and Donald Trump. So great stuff. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new, and I'll let you guys go and let y'all watch this very epic speech. So true.
It's great to be at not just at Mount Union, but really, I would say, in the heartland of American populism. Truly, northeastern Ohio, the hollow ground where we are standing, this is the spiritual birthplace of Donald Trump's original 2016 movement. And when we talk about the narrative, of working class Rust Belt voters bringing Trump victory 6 years ago, this is where we're talking about. I mean, America First was born with these people who live around here. And who are the people of northeastern Ohio? They are the people that the political establishment forgot. They are the forgotten men and women of America. And as the chairman of the American Populist Union standing in northeastern Ohio, really, what else is there to talk about, right? Tonight's speech will be about them, about the forgotten men and women of America. Now, this event is branded as a culture war, right? Which is so often a term used by conservative groups to talk about relevant issues, but, battles over things like, free speech or socialism or whatever. That's usually what it means on college campuses. But tonight, we're going to talk about the real culture war that defines really our moment in history. And that is the war between the people here and the people in Washington, D.C., Hollywood, and Silicon Valley. Now, to understand what makes Donald Trump and his movement so special, we must first understand the situation that created it. It's a story seen all over America, but especially in a place like this. And that is the selling out of the heart and soul of America to the false doctrine of globalism. That is the betrayal of the American people by our elites and our ruling class. As many people know, and I'm sure you guys are all familiar with, this part of Ohio specifically used to be the manufacturing powerhouse of America. It was a source of great pride for our nation that we were the manufacturing powerhouse of the world, and largely because of places like this. And it truly brought dignity and identity to the people of the Midwest. Yet that has since vanished. And has not just vanished, it has been taken from this place. Since 1990, Ohio has lost around 400,000 manufacturing jobs. And why? Not by accident, because of the greed of our corporate and political elites. Politicians on both sides decided that the GDP and these doctrines of free trade were more important than the working people here in Ohio. And so they abandoned the historical American tradition of protectionism for the doctrines of globalization and free trade and all of these things. They told these people it was for their own good. And yet look around you. Most of you guys live here. I'm sure you see it all the time. When factories closed, jobs left, towns were hollowed out, families collapsed, lives were destroyed. The economic despair isn't hard to see. It's all around you. Yet I would argue that the problem really does run much deeper than that. It's much deeper than simply not having jobs, though you could argue it really stems from that. The cultural and political elite in America have abandoned this place and these people as a whole. America's entire economic and cultural power now rests in the coastal cities. And if we know one thing, it's that our progressive cultural elites absolutely despise the people who live here. Is that not so true? So much so that they are literally trying to kill them off. The opioid crisis, which they turn a blind eye to at best, I would argue they actually created the opioid crisis, but regardless, kills some near 50,000 Americans a year. And most of them live in this part of the country. Most of those drugs pour across the southern border, which they refuse to secure, along with migrant workers to replace American labor and criminals to terrorize what's left of this place. To quote a great man, a very great man, they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some I assume are good people, but it's so true. It's absolutely true. It was a real quote. You wonder why They hated it so much because there was just genuine truth in that statement. But our elites don't care. If anything, they allow this to happen and arguably want this to happen. All right, what else? Well, since 2010, the birth rate here in Ohio has declined from 62.2 to 58.3. And that's been on the decline generally for a long time before that. Simultaneously, Ohio has been one of the few states where the obesity rate is not just staying stable. I mean, it's high in America in general, but in most states it's relatively stable, like kind of staying there. Ohio, the obesity rate is actually still increasing to this day, largely because of the absolute junk being fed by the FDA and the food system, again, that they created on purpose. But none of these numbers really do it justice. I mean, you guys live here. You can see it in the eyes of the people and in the towns around you. Our political system hates this place and they hate these people. They hate everything that it stands for and they quite literally want to kill it off. It's true. And why? Why? Because the truth is that it's not just, freedom and liberty necessarily that makes America great. America's families, right, make America great. The blue-collar American worker makes America great. The traditions and the way of life that built the American dream made America great. And America is nothing without these things. And so for an anti-American cultural elite who want to destroy our nation, it really does start with the rural Midwest and all of the places in America that reflect those values the most. But as we now explain the legacy of Donald Trump, I want you to remember that. They are killing this place off, and they are doing so with a purpose. Now let's transition a little bit. Establishing that the system really does want to kill this place and these people, here's my question. How would you react if someone was trying to kill you? Would you just sit there and take it, or would you probably get pretty angry and fight back? And there you have the rise of Donald Trump explained. As far back as the 1990s, Sam Francis virtually predicted this and deemed the demographic groups that would come to support Trump and populist conservatism as this term. Remember this term, middle American radicals. And that's exactly what they are. There's a very strong push by the Republican establishment to astroturf the Trump movement and the slogan of Make America Great Again. They tell you that it's about tolerance or something like that. Oh, we are the open tent movement of tolerance and being nice or whatever. Remember the hippie liberals in the 60s? That's basically us. We're like the real free speech libtards now. And it's like, okay. Let us remember the real reason why Donald Trump is popular in this place. And that's because in 2016, he was the only person in a crowded field of candidates that actually spoke to these people, to the middle American radical. And he spoke to these people not because he was a nice guy or the most tolerant one on the stage. No. He spoke to these people because he was just as angry about the same problems as they were. Let us never forget that. Trump deemed these people the forgotten men and women of America because they really were. And he understood that. He was not one of them necessarily. He is no working class Midwestern Ohio guy, right? But he talked like them and he thinks like them. And that's why he won. But since 2016, as we all know, the conservative establishment really has learned nothing from Trump and instead does everything it can to abandon Trump's original message. Instead of pushing immigration reform and the nationalist agenda that got Trump elected, the GOP spent most of its time, when they had control of government, pursuing tax cuts and failing to repeal Obamacare and all these things, none of which are bad necessarily, but we all know that's not what Donald Trump was elected to do. Mainstream conservative institutions, well, during the Trump years, they were even worse. They tried to grift off the brand of Trump to push their same tired old talking points about, small government and socialism, as well as the new line I brought up earlier about the intolerant left and, countless videos on why tolerance is actually a conservative virtue. We have seen many of those. Yet the Trump movement, this is important to understand, the Trump movement was not built on tolerance. In many ways, you could argue it was specifically built on intolerance toward the status quo. Now, come 2020, instead of promoting Trump's core agenda on trade or immigration, the RNC instead promoted things like criminal justice reform and Trump being the most pro-LGBT president in American history. Remember that talking point? And let me ask this question, really. Okay, that's all what it is, but is that what Midwestern Americans elected Donald Trump to do? No. Let's not kid ourselves. The people in this part of Ohio have watched as the political establishment killed their towns, shipped their jobs overseas, murdered their kids with opioids, destroyed their families, and entirely abandoned them. They are watching as the political system quite literally kills off middle America. Do you think they are driven by tolerance? Do you think they are driven by a soft, free-spirited attitude towards politics? Do you think they want moderate rhetoric? Did they elect Donald Trump because he sold that? No. They are driven by anger. I don't like this word, but it's very true. It's an accurate statement. The people in this part of the country are driven by hatred towards our political elites, and for righteous reasons. They elected Donald Trump, not only because he was not a part of that system, but because he vowed to burn that system to the ground. Ron DeSantis is great, Glenn Youngkin is decent, all these people, whatever, but the truth is that none of these candidates offer the forgotten men and women of America the populist warrior they're looking for. This whole push to seek a more moderate or toned-down Republican for 2024 is so misguided. Because the truth is, you don't win as a modern Republican without winning the Rust Belt. You know, that's kind of the place where all the swing states on the key map go through, right? And so it's important to understand what the people here actually want. And what they want is Donald Trump in his original form, not a more laid back or polished form or kind of soft form or whatever. They want Trump. They want the original Trump. Why? Because these people do not want peace with the political system. They want war. They elected Donald Trump and they love Donald Trump because he came to bring war. Nowadays, you have all these, consultants and country club Republicans and National Review writers who say, well, what we really need is just a more polished and moderate version of Trump, a more toned down version of Trump. And it's like, yeah, well, that's easy for you to say when politics is just a game of fundraisers and cocktail dinners that you have little stake in. But the truth is that politics is a matter of life or death, like we established for a lot of the people here. Now, there were way more polished, quote-unquote, Republicans in 2016, and these people, guess what? Elected Donald Trump because he was not polished. Don't you get it? In Ohio, Trump was not elected in spite of his aggressiveness or personality. He was elected because of his aggressiveness and personality. Everything that the country club Republicans, we will deem them, say makes Trump unpalatable is exactly what drives middle American radicals to support Trump. And when Trump undoubtedly runs again in 2024, it will be that original Trump that the people here are looking for. Now, the good news, I would say, for the middle American radicals and the bad news for the country club Republicans is this. I can't tell the future, but I personally predict that original Trump, if not something better, is the Trump that they are going to get in 2024. Why? Because the same political system that screwed over middle America for decades screwed over Trump in 2020. And make no mistake, Trump has not forgotten. He never forgets. If we know one thing about Donald Trump, it's that he does not forget and he does not forgive easily, which you could say there's problems with that character-wise. It doesn't matter. It's what we need. It's what we need. We cannot forget this. And I firmly predict that in 2024, Donald Trump will seek his revenge on the political system. He will seek vengeance on everyone who wronged him. It's true. And that's exactly what middle America wants him to do. Why? They share the same enemy. The same exact thing has happened to them. And the truth is that no other potential Republican candidate offers this whatsoever. It is Donald Trump and Donald Trump alone that these people need. Now, with all that said, on a bigger scale than Trump, the conservative movement has a choice to make. And this is the real culture war. We can either be the movement of the Midwestern blue-collar man, the forgotten ones of America, the middle American radical. Or we can be the movement of corporate America and the RNC, desperately trying to drum up cringy slogans to crack like 10% of the vote from demographic groups who have no interest in being associated with us. To me, really, the choice is pretty clear. If we want to build a coalition in opposition to the neoliberal system, we find natural allies in those who neoliberalism screwed over the most. And that is right here in Alliance. It's in Stark County. It's in this entire state and this entire region. And the generic Republican counter-argument is always that, no, but middle America is not diverse enough. It's too white. They're too poor. They're too socially conservative. And it's like, we can't use them for weird identity politics videos where we say, well, look, who's the real racist now? Libs, I have a whatever, right? But that's the point. Don't you get it? These are the exact people that the system is trying to destroy. Therefore, that's where you find a natural support for a counter-revolution. Yes, that means the system will call us more names, obviously, but that's going to happen when you make a movement that genuinely challenges the system. It is much easier to build a movement that works inside of the system instead of building a movement that actually seeks to destroy it. Obviously, It's easier to work within the game than to try to burn it down and make a new game. Yet when you look around and you see what this system has done to the towns and to the people around you, you see that there's nothing redeemable about our current political system. Our elites are morally corrupt, our system is broken, and it will take a movement at least like Donald Trump's, if not far better than that, to do that. And if you want to build a conservative counter-revolution, the truth is that this is the place you ought to start. I'll close with this. If liberalism is the coalition of coastal elites, foreigners, woke capital, and cultural decay, then conservatism is the natural coalition of people like middle Americans and values like family and tradition. We are the coalition of the things that globalism and progressivism left behind. So let's remember that. Let's remember who we are. Let's make America great again. Let's make Ohio great again. Let's make our credo Americanism, not globalism. And let's make the American people come first once again. And it starts right here. Thank you very much, guys. God bless.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo as long